What does it mean to be in the top 5% of all Rocket League players? This is a question that not a lot of people, including myself, would be able to answer. Competitive Rocket League is divided into ranks and divisions, and unless you keep track of your ELO through a Rocket League stat tracker, you're not going to know what percentile of players you sit in. In order to be in the top 5% of all Rocket League players, you only need to be in about mid-Champ 2. So how good do you have to be to get to Champ 2? Unless you have made it to that rank or higher, you're probably not going to know what it takes to get to that level specifically, as there are not a lot of prominent creators in the champion range, providing consistent gameplay of Champ 2. So how do I fit into all of this? Well, I sit at about the top 4% of Rocket League players in Champ 3. In addition to that, I've made it here almost solely off positional gameplay. My mechanics are not good in the slightest for the rank that I'm at, and I usually rely on trying to outsmart my opponents to beat them in match. So I designed a gauntlet of 3 different challenges to test my basic mechanics for other players to use as a test if they want to see how they compare to the top 5% of all Rocket League players. What are the 3 challenges? Well, the first challenge is a dribbling test. I'll be doing Dribble Overhaul 2 in the Steam Workshop, and I will give myself 10 minutes to see how far I can go on the map. The next challenge is an air rings map to test aerial control. I did Neon Heights by Lethamyr for this specific challenge, and I timed myself to see how long it would take to get to the end of the map. And finally, I did a training pack to test my shooting. For this challenge, I used Noob to GC progression pack, and I timed myself to see how long it would take to make the first 10 shots of the training pack. Before we get started, at the time I posted my last video, I was under 100 subscribers, and at the current moment that I'm recording this video, I'm sitting at about 250 subscribers. I just want to thank you guys for all the support and for subscribing to the channel. It means a lot to know that you guys are enjoying the content that I'm putting out, and it makes me excited to see what I can put out in the future. And with that out of the way, let's move into the first challenge. So as I said previously, the first challenge that I did was a dribbling challenge. It's worth noting that with this map in particular, I have done the map before. I use it to warm up occasionally. I'm familiar with a lot of the levels. I wouldn't say that I'm well versed in the map as a whole, but I do know kind of what to expect as I move through this map. And a main focal point I want to touch on first is that this map gets progressively harder as you move through the course. So it's almost to no surprise that I was able to do the first few levels pretty easily, as it only consisted of dribbling in a straight line and dribbling with minor turns. As you get into levels 6 and 7, you start to deal with these rotating wooden walls, and what this is teaching you is how to move the ball from the front of your car to the back of your car to change your speed while you're dribbling. And I will say that this is a pretty good run for me, as I still haven't had to reset at this point, but as I get into level 8, I do make my first mistake, but I'm easily able to correct it. I think another thing that's important to note about this challenge is that there are some levels, especially like level 8 and level 9, where you're not going to have as much translation from success in the workshop map into actual games. Just because, like for example, on level 9, kind of drive the ball up a slant and then drive it back down onto a flat surface, and it creates this weird feeling while you're dribbling the ball. And obviously you're not going to have a situation where you can use that in game, but it kind of just helps you increase your ability to control your dribble. Moving into level 11 is where I start to see my first real challenge. And the reason for that is you have to flick the ball extremely high in the air while giving it forward velocity. Now there's a couple ways to do this. You can jaser flick, or you can do what I did and simply just bike flick. It wasn't anything spectacular. And then once you get past level 11, you would move into what I call the intermediate challenges in this course. It's around this area that I start to have to reset the ball quite often, and I'm not one taking a bunch of levels in a row. A lot of the levels in this section are kind of building on those basic fundamentals you work on that first floor. So for example, in level 13, not only are you having to turn while dribbling the ball, you also have to be able to slow down and speed up while dribbling because of the moving platforms going side to side. Movements start to become more complex and more precise at this level, and like I said, I was starting to struggle a little bit here, but it wasn't until I got to level 15 that I really started to have an issue. And I really shouldn't have had that much of an issue on this level. It's almost exactly the same as level 11. Flick the ball really high and get it over the wall, except this time you just have to catch it. Well, for some reason it took me about 2.5 minutes to figure that part out, and I got stuck on it for a really long time. I didn't even think I was going to get past the level, but thankfully I ended up figuring it out. And level 16 is the transition level to the next floor, where you start an air dribble and then you catch it with the bottom of your car. This is a very important mechanic to have to be able to transition from an air play into a dribble quite efficiently. It doesn't have to be perfect at the Champ 2 level, but just being able to do that, it gives you more options when you go off the wall to shoot a ball. And finally, I ended my run on level 17. Just as a quick reminder, my second challenge was the air rings map to test my aerial control, and I know that I've said this in a couple videos now that a lot of Champ 2 games are kind of won on the ground for the most part. However, having aerial control is so important and key to winning games in Champ. When your skill level on the ground is identical to your opponents, having that aerial control and being able to put good aerial shots on target will be the deciding factor in who wins the match. So just like the first challenge, I kind of got off to a little bit of a rough start. I felt a little slow at times, but I really started to pick it up as the challenge moved on, and everything, especially in the first half, felt very smooth. I'd only done this rings map maybe once before, so I was not familiar with the levels at all. But then there were other times where everything was going super smoothly and I felt like I'd played the map hundreds of times. So with aerial control, especially in Champ, you should be either using air roll or starting to use directional air roll if you haven't already. I personally like directional air roll a lot better, and most people would probably agree, as it just feels more fluid in the air and easier to control. I feel like sometimes when you only rely on air roll, your car feels very rigid and you have issues making quick adjustments on your turns. I will say that for the rings map, I kind of used a mixture of both, just because I was trying to get a good quality time to reflect my actual ability to complete this map as quickly as possible. And for the most part, I didn't have issues until about level 14. There was this interesting mechanic. You kind of take the rings and you go upwards and you get to the top, and then you have to kind of climb downwards. And the reason I don't really like this being in the rings map is because it doesn't reflect a situation in game where you would just be slowly creeping downwards trying to get into these awkward spaces with an awkward camera angle. There's not really ever a time in match where that would really apply, so it did trip me up the first time. I was able to correct it and move forward, and by the time I'd gotten to level 20, I felt like I was making a really good time until I ran into the exact same mechanic on level 20, and I failed again. And that one set me back about 20 to 30 seconds. I was kind of upset about that because it's so far into the level and it's such a peculiar skill to need. At the end of this, I ended up finishing with a time of 15 minutes and 16 seconds. My final challenge was to do the first 10 shots in the Noob to GC progression training pack. It consists of both ground and aerial level shots that you would expect to see in mid-ranked matches. Shot placement and consistency is so important at champ lobbies because it's something that so many people lack, and if you take the time to master it even at a basic level and get really consistent, you're going to be way ahead of everybody else that you're facing. I still run into issues with shot placement and consistency on a regular basis, and I've been trying to fix it for a long time, so it's something that you really have to work at. But as for the training pack, if I'm going to be honest, if you want to get to the top 5% of Rocket League, you should be able to do these first 10 shots pretty easily. The only exception to this rule might be shot 7, only because I personally was having a lot of issues with this shot. I don't know if I was doing it wrong, but I decided that the best way to do it is to kind of half flip into the ball to get it to go into the net. I'm sure there was some simpler way that I just completely missed. When I completed the 10th shot, I ended up finishing the challenge in 2 minutes and 51 seconds. So just as a quick summary, here are the results from the 3 challenges. Now, no matter what your rank is, I encourage you to take this challenge on your own. Compete against my results and let me know in the comments how you did and what your rank is. And during the video, I tried to avoid turning this into a helpful tips and tricks video to get you to Champ 2, because I did just do my 20 tips to help you rank up video, and I didn't want to repeat some of the same points that I had already presented earlier. And even if you aren't Champ 2 yet and you aren't able to get the same times as me, maybe you want to take it upon yourself and challenge yourself to beat those times and build your mechanical foundation that way. I feel like a lot of people get lost in the chase of higher ranks when playing Rocket League, and they lose sight of what they enjoy. At the end of the day, the best way to get better at these things is to enjoy what you're doing. And I can give you all the tips and tricks in the world, but at the end of the day, it's up to you to decide what you like to do and what you want to do and to go from there. Because not everybody plays Rocket League to rank up and be the highest rank that they can be. There's plenty of ways to play this game and plenty of ways to enjoy it as well. I know personally that grinding for mechanics can be exhausting and frustrating, which is why I did offer this challenge as kind of a break from all of that and maybe have a more fun take on the idea of practicing mechanics. So I really hope you guys enjoyed that. If you want me to do more challenge videos like this in the future, please let me know in the comments, and I'll see you guys next time.